Hello and welcome back to my English classes. Now today we are going to see from the class 10th Footprints Without Feet chapter lesson 5 Footprints Without Feet. I'll give you the summary of the lesson. Boys see footprints from nowhere. The two boys were surprised to see the fresh muddy foot imprints. Means the two boys in that area have seen the footprints of someone which were full of mud. These were of a pair of bare feet. Means the footprints were seen that it was without shoes. As they gazed, as they looked at it, a fresh footmark appeared from nowhere. Means the boys were not able to see the person, but the footmarks were appearing before them. Then they saw further steps down the street. Thereafter they disappeared. Means down there they have seen that the footmarks have gone till down the street, but after that it vanished. Second point, footprints of Griffin, an invisible scientist. These footprints were of a scientist named Griffin. He had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. Means Griffin was a scientist and he discovered this thing that how the man can be transparent or invisible. He swallowed some drugs. He had taken some drugs. His body became as transparent as a sheet of glass. It was before his footprints being seen. That means when he ate the medicine drugs, that has disappeared his appearance in the form of physical way. Third point, Griffin, a lawless person. Means Griffin was not following any laws. But Griffin was rather a lawless person. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. Means landlord, because वो किराए पे रहता था, तो landlord was irritated with Griffin because he never used to follow the rules and regulations. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. He had to remove his clothes to get away. So he became homeless wanderer without clothes or money. The two boys had seen him thus. First time those two boys have seen him when Griffin had put a fire on the landlord's house and he had to remove his clothes to get away. Means he has to, because his body was invisible, so he has to remove the clothes so that nobody can catch him. Griffin's escape. Griffin escaped from the boys. He was without clothes in midwinter at that time. It was the time of midwinter. Instead of walking about the streets, he entered a big London store for warmth. Because he was without clothes, he must be feeling cold because it was midwinter. So he went into the London store to warm himself. He broke open boxes. He fitted himself with warm clothes. He had shoes, overcoat, a hat, but was invisible. Means everything he put on himself so that he can feel warm, but the appearance of his physical body was not there. He took cool meat and coffee in a restaurant. He also took meals, sweets, wine, etc. in a grocery store. Means he was taking advantage of this thing that he is invisible. So he was grabbing all the things. But nobody was able to catch him because he was invisible. Finally, he slept on a pile of quilts in sight. Next point, Griffin chased away. He did not wake up till the next morning. When the servants came, he began to run. They chased him. He escaped by taking off his newly found clothes. Now here, as he was wearing clothes, he was visible. Not physically, but because of clothes which he was wearing. So he wanted to save himself, so he took off those new clothes that he had taken from the London store. This time he entered a theatrical company. He hoped to find some clothes. Shivering with cold, he hurried to Drury Lane. It was the center of the theatre world. Now, because it was winter days, so he was feeling cold because he was not wearing any clothes. To save himself, he has to take out his clothes. And then he entered in the theatre where he hoped that he can get some clothes. Enters a shop. He soon found a suitable shop. He went upstairs but came out a little later. He was now wearing bandages. Now this time, instead of clothes, He wrapped himself with bandages. Those were round his forehead. He wore dark glasses, false nose, and a big bushy side whiskers. He attacked a shopkeeper. Now, you must have seen the hollow movies. In that also, the person was invisible. So in the same way, he was invisible and was taking advantage. Then he robbed him of all his money. He then went to Impling village from London. There he booked 2 rooms at the local inn belonging to Mrs. Hall. Now, after robbing the shopkeeper, he then moved to the Imping village from London. And there in the Imping village, he has taken rooms in the Mrs. Hall cottage. Arise in an inn. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter amazed the villagers. Why? Let's see. Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife, wanted to be friendly with him, but he told her that he did not want to be disturbed. He also told her that an incident had affected his face. Now, because his face was covered with bandages, so he said Mrs. Hall that he didn't want to talk to anyone, he didn't want to be disturbed, and then he gave excuse that an accident had affected his face. Stealing of money by Griffin. The stolen money did not last long. He, however, pretended that he was expecting some money at any moment. Now, because his body was invisible, now he was free to do whatever he likes to do. So after some time, the money which he had stolen from the shopkeeper or robbed from the shopkeeper was now ending. So he pretended that now again he has to do something to get the money. Shortly afterwards, a curious episode occurred. Griffin had made himself invisible. He entered a clergy's house. The clergyman awoke and he asked him to surrender, but he could see no one. Now here, the clergyman was able to hear the noise, the footprints, but he was not able to see the person. Even then he said to surrender. He realized the room was empty, yet the desk had been opened and the money was missing. It was extraordinary for the clergyman. Now here, the clergyman was not able to see anyone, but the drawer was open and the money was taken out from that drawer. Next point, surprise of Mrs. Hall. The landlord and his wife, Mrs. Hall, were get up very early. They were surprised to see the scientist's door wide open. Now they were surprised because, as he has said, not to disturb him. They peeped round but saw nobody. Clothes, bandages, etc. were lying about in the room. Everything was disorder. Means when they entered the room to see that Griffin was not there, and the bandages, the clothes were lying on the bed like that. It was not decked up. Now, after seeing the condition of the room, Mrs. Hall was in great terror. She was not feeling good. All of a sudden, Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ears, means a slight sound. Then the bedpost leaped up. It dashed itself into her face. Both of them turned away in terror. A chair pushed both out of the room. Mrs. Hall almost fell down crying. She felt sure that the room was haunted by spirits. Now here Griffin has entered the room and he was doing such things to her, and that is why she was terrified and she thought that this room is haunted. Darauna. Griffin suspected as a thief. Soon the burglary in the clergyman's house became known. Because of this, that there is a haunted place. The strange scientist was suspected of having a hand in it. The suspicion became stronger as he produced ready cash. Earlier, he had admitted not having any. Now, here it was surprised of this thing that Griffin was not having money with him, and now after some time he has lot of money with him. So this thing has made Griffin a suspect as a thief. Next point, the truth is out. The village constable was strictly called. But Mrs. Hall did not wait for a constable. She went to the scientist. She asked him that he had been doing to her chairs upstairs. She wanted to know how he had entered a locked room. Now here Mrs. Hall was curious to know why this thing was happening, so they called the constable, but she didn't wait and she went to the scientist to know how this thing is taking place. At this, the scientist grew angry. He suddenly shouted at her. He then threw off bandages, spectacles, nose, etc. He had become invisible. The horrified people now saw at a headless person. Now here when Mrs. Hall asked Griffin about these things, that why these things are taking place, so he got angry, and because of anger, he has taken out all the clothes, all the things, and now he is a transparent person. He again became invisible, and this horrified the people of that area. Next point, Constable Jeffers' problem. Mr. Jeffers, the constable, arrived. He was surprised that he had to arrest a man without head, but he had to arrest him in any case. So he tried to catch the scientist, but he was throwing off one garment after another. Means there was a problem for the constable to arrest this man because this man was without head. That means Griffin. The constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. Now here you see that constable is fighting with the person who is invisible, and that person, that means Griffin, is throwing clothes at him. Some people tried to help him, but they received blows only from invisible Griffin. Others also tried to catch Griffin, but it was in vain. Griffin vanishes. In the end, Jeffers became unconscious. There were cries of hold him. Means people were shouting, hold him, catch him. But Griffin had freed himself. No one knew where to lay hand on him because Griffin was invisible, and because of this invisibility, he became a negative person. He was robbing the money from the shops. He was taking the clothes and all, and that means in other words, he was taking the advantage of being invisible, but that advantage was not in positive way. He was doing the wrong things as he became an invisible person. I hope you have understood the chapter. Thank you.